Hey Gear Seekers, I'm Nick. Today we're checking out a brand new motherboard from NZXT. It's called the N7 B650E, and with these motherboard videos, they are not reviews. They're just overviews so we can take a bit of a look at what physically comes in the box of the board like this and what physically is on this motherboard. So let's dive in. Here it is, ladies and gents, the NZXT N7 B650E, but let's do our usual thing. Let's get that motherboard out of the box so we can take a bit of a close at everything that comes with this motherboard. And to be honest, there's not a lot here in the box. First up, we've got this user guide. Basically, this is just saying install NZXT Cam to do all of the things, right? Pretty straightforward. There's also a bunch of M.2 screws for the 3 M.2 slots that are on this motherboard. We'll take a look at that in a moment. There's also a set of SATA or SATA cables for your 2.5-inch SSDs or your spinning ROS drives. This board's only got 4 SATA ports, as you're about to see as well. There's also some antennas for the built-in Wi-Fi 6E and Bluetooth as well. But enough of all of that stuff. We need to unsheath the N7 B650E and take a bit of a closer look at everything that is actually physically on this board. Let's jump in. First up, we've got the front panel audio header. There is a postcode diagnostic LED array for helping you diagnose your system if you're having any issues. There's 2 3-pin addressable 5-volt RGB headers. There's 3 USB 2.0 headers for things like RGB controllers and liquid coolers and all that jazz. There's 3 PWM fan headers. There's 2 NZXT RGB headers for their proprietary RGB connectors. There's also a reset button, a power button, and the front panel header for your lights and noise switches to let you know your system's up and running. There's a USB 3.2 front panel header. There's 4 SATA or SATA ports for your 2.5-inch SSDs or your spinning ROS drives, and another right-angled USB 3.2 header. There's a USB Type-C front panel header towards the edge of the board as well, a 24-pin power connector to send juice to your brand new NZXT N7 B650E, and 2 more PWM fan headers. On the top right-hand side of the board, there are 2 more proprietary NZXT RGB headers and 2 more PWM fan headers up there as well. For power, there's an 8-pin EPS power connector as well as a supplemental 4-pin EPS power connector to send juice to your brand new Ryzen 7000 CPU. For the PCIe slots on this board, it's got a single by 16 sized PCIe Gen 5 slot and 2 PCIe Gen 4 by 2 slots that are both by 16 sized as well. For the VRM layout, this features a 16+2+1 phase VRM layout with 90 amp power stages. In terms of NZXT motherboards we've seen in the past, this is definitely on the beefier end of their boards. It's good to see this. The board also features AM5 cooler mounting. Now, this does retain some AM4 cooler mounting compatibility. We've actually made a video explaining the differences, what all of this stuff is and all that jazz. I'll put a link to that video in the description. Because this is a B650E board, it does feature the brand new AM5 socket, which is actually LGA 1718, which means there's 1,718 contact pins in the socket, and we have the shot here to show you what it looks like if you've never seen it before. If we flip the board over, you can see that there's not a lot going on here. You can see that permanently attached rear IO shield that is bolted to the back of the board, and also the back plate for the CPU socket, which I explained in the video I mentioned previously. For RAM support, it supports up to 128 gigs of DDR5 memory, up to 6,000 mega transfers, and there's 4 modules, and it also supports AMD Expo and XMP as well. Now, let's take off the M.2 heatsinks here. Now, this is actually interesting, and I like this. It's magnetic, so you don't actually need screws to really take them off. They're actually not heatsinks at all. They're basically just covers for the board. For PCIe slots, it features a single PCIe Gen 5 M.2 slot and 2 PCIe Gen 4 M.2 slots. The top 2 M.2 slots are connected into the CPU. The top one is a PCIe Gen 5 slot, the one down is a PCIe Gen 4 slot, and the one at the bottom is connected into the chipset, which is a PCIe Gen 4 M.2 slot. You can see that the Wi-Fi card, which is a Wi-Fi 6E module, is removable as well. So if you wanted to upgrade this, let's say when Wi-Fi 7 comes out at a later stage, you could do that without any issue. For rear I/O, we've got an HDMI port, the antenna connectors for the built-in Wi-Fi 6E, we've got a clear CMOS button, a BIOS flashback button, some USB 2.0 ports, one that actually allows you to do the BIOS flashback, 2.5 gigabit Ethernet, a bunch of USB 3.2 ports, USB Type-C, and 7.1 digital surround sound with optical and SPDIF output, as well as that integrated I/O shield. Alright ladies and gents, I hope you enjoyed this first look and overview of the NZXT N7 B650E. Now, in terms of the feature set of this board, I think NZXT has actually stepped up their motherboard game a little bit here. Now, as you may or may not know, these boards from NZXT are just rebadged ASRock boards, and they usually have a pretty similar ASRock counterpart. However, I don't have any B650E boards from ASRock, so it's kind of difficult to make a comparison here to show you what this board actually compares to. In terms of the VRM for this motherboard, it is a bit beefier than we've seen from any other NZXT boards in the past, so it gets some extra goodness from me. Also, one thing I wanted to mention is it's got 3 USB 2.0 headers on the board, which is nice, especially if you're building a system with a board like this. You're going for that real aesthetic vibe, and you'll need connections for heaps of RGB controllers. However, this motherboard also has a whole stack of those NZXT RGB headers on the board as well. So you may or may not actually need those additional USB 2.0 headers, but it is nice if you're not using NZXT RGB stuff. Anyways, a couple things that I think that this board is missing that we've seen from newer boards with the last couple motherboard generations is there's no quick release button for the top PCIe slot. I think that is a bit of a mistake here. ASRock hasn't done that with any of their boards either, but I think it's something that NZXT really needs to consider for people who are DIY PC builders who want to pull out their GPU and upgrade at a later time, especially with this big heatsink at the top for the M.2 drive. It's kind of difficult to get your finger in there and actually release the latch. You'd have to take off that top heatsink to actually get in there and do anything that you needed to do. Another thing that I think is a bit odd that we haven't seen with these NZXT boards and with ASRock boards as well is there's no quick release mechanism for the M.2 slots. I kind of understand why they did that with this board, given these removable magnetic panels that cover the drives. However, they should have just done it anyway and made these things a little bit higher, or just remove the plastic underneath them to give some extra clearance. If you're interested in the NZXT N7 B650E, they're going for around 539 Aussie dollars, or around 339 US dollars at the time of filming this video. Now, if you look on NZXT's website, it says that it's not available and it's coming soon. However, I have seen some retailers here in Australia that have these already ready for purchase. So if you're in Australia, I think you can pick these up from JW from memory, and I'm sure all the other ones will follow suit soon. Now, one thing I will mention about boards like this, these are not meant to be the best high performance motherboards on the market. These are for people who want to have all the bling bling or have a motherboard that matches the vibe of their PC build. And I can see why these exist, because We haven't seen boards that have had white PCBs for a while, although there are a few. It's good that NZXT actually makes boards like this for people who really want it, and people are actually happy to spend the extra money just to get the look too. I personally don't believe that you should spend money on aesthetics just for the sake of looking good, but I can't tell you how to spend your money. Anyways, guys, if you like this video, make sure you hit the subscribe button, hit the like button. If you want to hear the music, I make all the music. It's available by clicking the join button down below. If you want to get early access to videos like this one right here, we are on Floatplane. Once again, thank you so very much for watching. I am your boy Nick with Gear Seekers, doing a motherboard ting. You peek, we seek, and we'll catch you next time. Now, I wanted to give you guys a little bit of a secret here. Claire and I are looking at getting another cat. And we have a debate about the names of the cat, right? The top contender for a male cat is Stabby. I think Rudy's a nice name. Claire likes Stabby. And I'm pretty sure that if we get another cat and it's a male cat, because we're looking for male cats, so Bindi has a boyfriend or a friend, it's going to be called Stabby. I don't have a choice. I didn't get to name Bindi either. We got her with that name. But Stabby? Really, Claire? Stabby? Yep. It's kind of growing on me though. That's a great name. Stabby and Bindi. Let us know what you think is a good name for a male Bengal. We're going to get another Bengal. We're just looking for the right one to come along. We're not getting a kitten. We want to adopt like an older one. Thanks for watching. Stabby.